Let's send out a call for all Allied ships to gather here, Klein instructed. We need to form a united front. We can't let the Council think we are weak. As messages were sent, Klein turned her attention back to Varrock. We also need to communicate with other worlds. The Council must know that we will not stand down. We will fight for our right to exist. Varrock's eyes brightened. Yes, we should reach out to any systems that may support us. Together, we can form a new order, one that protects our rights. Days passed as Allied ships gathered in the Valor's docking bays. Leaders from various species convened, each one nervous but hopeful. Klein felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her as she addressed the gathering. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady. "Today we stand united against a common enemy. The Galactic Council believes they can dictate our futures, but we will show them that we are strong together. We will not bow to their threats or their rules." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement. Varrock stood beside her, his presence commanding. "We must create a council of our own, a coalition that respects all species and protects our freedom. Together we can bring about a new order." The representatives nodded, their faces a mix of determination and hope. They spent hours discussing plans, strategies, and how to strengthen their alliance. They knew they had to be smart. The council was powerful and would likely retaliate. As the meeting concluded, Klein felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just survivors. They were fighters, ready to reshape the galaxy's future. The newly formed coalition would not allow the Galactic Council to dictate their fates any longer. Days turned into weeks as the coalition grew stronger. Ships from different worlds joined forces, sharing technology and knowledge. Klein worked closely with Varrock and other leaders to establish communication channels and defense strategies. They were creating a force that could rival the Council. However, not everyone welcomed this change. Rumors spread throughout the galaxy that the Galactic Council was preparing a massive counterattack. Klein received word that they were amassing their fleets and gathering allies determined to crush the uprising. "Admiral, we've intercepted communications from the Council," an officer reported one morning, her voice trembling with urgency. "They plan to strike our coalition within the next month." Klein's heart raced. "We need to act fast. Let's spread the word to our allies and prepare for the worst. We have to stand together." The coalition worked tirelessly, fortifying their defenses and preparing their fleets for battle. Klein felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to turn back now. They were fighting not just for their survival, but for the right to choose their own destinies. As the days passed, Klein stood on the bridge of the USS Valor, watching the stars flicker against the darkness. The coalition was ready, and she could sense the shift in the galaxy. The old order was crumbling, and a new one was rising in its place. "Admiral, all ships are ready," an officer announced. "Good," Klein replied, her voice filled with conviction. "Let's show the Council that we will not be silenced. We will fight for our freedom, and we will not stop until we have achieved it." As the ships prepared for the upcoming battle, Klein felt a fierce pride for her crew and their allies. Together, they had forged a new path in the galaxy, one where they could stand united against any threat. With the horizon of war before them, Klein knew that this was just the beginning. The battle for survival had led them to a new order, one built on strength, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to back down. The galaxy would never be the same again. In a faraway galaxy, many strange and powerful alien groups fought for control of planets and resources. Each faction had its own warriors, ships, and technologies. In the center of this chaos was the Galactic Council, a group that tried to maintain order among the various species. They held meetings and discussed important matters, but deep down they feared one thing: the return of humanity. Long ago, humans were known for their bravery and fierce fighting skills. They once ruled a vast empire, but a terrible war had caused them to disappear. Their powerful fleet was lost, hidden in the shadows of time. As rumors began to spread about the ancient human fleet, fear gripped the council members. What if the humans returned? What if they wanted revenge? Meanwhile, in an uncharted area of the galaxy, something extraordinary was happening. In the cold darkness of space, an ancient fleet lay dormant, hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. The ships were covered in dust and debris, forgotten by time. However, inside the largest ship, a control room came to life. Lights flickered on, and machines hummed to life as systems began to boot up. Admiral Sarah Klein awoke from her long sleep, confused at first. She rubbed her eyes and looked around. The last thing she remembered was a fierce battle against alien forces. Now she was back, but everything felt different. A crew member rushed in, excitement in their voice. "Admiral, we are awake! The fleet is ready to rise!" As she gathered her thoughts, Admiral Klein quickly realized the importance of the moment. She had been frozen for decades, and the galaxy had changed. She looked at the crew, young faces filled with determination. They were the next generation of humans, trained to fight and protect. They needed to understand their mission. "Listen up!" she shouted, her voice steady and powerful. "We are the forgotten fleet of humanity. Our ancestors fought bravely, and now it's our turn to defend our legacy. We must show the galaxy that we are back, and we will not be ignored." The crew nodded, inspired by her words. They began to prepare the ships for launch, checking weapons and systems. Klein could feel the energy in the room as everyone worked together. The fleet was ready, and so was she. As the fleet rose from its slumber, Admiral Klein knew they had to be careful. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. Many alien factions were still hostile, and they might see the fleet as a threat. The humans needed to prove that they were not here to conquer, but to protect their home. Once the ships were in formation, Admiral Klein took a deep breath. "Let's send a message," she said, her voice calm but firm. The crew worked quickly, broadcasting a signal to the galaxy. "This is Admiral Sarah Klein of the United Human Fleet. We are back. We warn all factions to stay away from Earth. We will protect our home at all costs." The message echoed across space, reaching distant planets and alien ears. Some factions felt a chill run down their spines. They remembered the stories of human bravery and cunning. Others laughed, thinking the humans were weak and outdated. They could not see the truth. The humans had been training, evolving, and now they were ready to fight again. As the fleet traveled through space, Klein and her crew discussed their next steps. They needed to gather information about the current state of the galaxy. Who were the major players? What alliances existed? They had to learn quickly and prepare for anything. Admiral Klein knew the road ahead would be difficult. The galaxy was not the same as when they had fallen asleep. But she felt a surge of hope. The forgotten fleet was awake, and with it, humanity's spirit had returned. As the stars passed by, Admiral Klein gazed out at the vastness of space. She knew they had a long journey ahead, but they were not alone. The spirit of humanity lived within each ship, each crew member ready to fight for their future. And together, they would rise again, leaving their mark on the galaxy. As the human fleet moved through the galaxy, tension filled the air. Admiral Sarah Klein stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Valor, gazing at the stars. The crew was buzzing with energy and excitement. They were no longer the forgotten fleet, they were back, and they had a mission. "Admiral, we have detected a ship on our scanners," a young officer reported, breaking the silence. "It appears to be an alien warship approaching fast." Klein's heart raced. This was their first real encounter since waking up. "What is its status?" she asked, her voice steady. "Unknown. It could be hostile," the officer replied, eyes wide. Klein nodded. "Prepare to initiate communication. We need to make our intentions clear." The crew quickly set up the communication systems. Klein took a deep breath, focusing on the screen as it lit up with the image of the alien warship. It was large and menacing, with sharp angles and glowing lights. The colors shifted like oil on water, making it look both beautiful and terrifying. "Open a channel," Klein ordered. The officer pressed a button, and her voice echoed through the ship and into space. "This is Admiral Sarah Klein of the United Human Fleet. We come in peace and seek to understand our place in this galaxy." There was a moment of silence before a voice responded, deep and booming. "You are brave to speak, human. But do you not fear the wrath of the Galactic Council?" Klein felt a surge of determination. "We are not afraid. We are here to protect our home, and we wish to speak." "What is your name?" "I am Captain Varrock of the Zerthian Empire," the voice replied. The screen shifted to show a tall, imposing figure with green skin and bright yellow eyes. "You humans were thought to be dead. Your reawakening has sent shockwaves through the galaxy." Klein noticed the glances exchanged among her crew. They were all on edge, unsure of what this encounter might bring. "We understand there may be fear about our return. We are not here to conquer but to coexist. Can we find common ground?" Captain Varrock narrowed his eyes. "Coexistence is not easy in a galaxy filled with power struggles. Many factions will see you as a threat." The conversation continued, with Klein and Varrock discussing the state of the galaxy. They spoke of the alliances that had formed, the wars that had been fought, and the fear that gripped many species. Klein listened carefully, trying to understand their perspective while firmly holding on to humanity's goals. As they spoke, the crew on the USS Valor monitored the situation closely. They exchanged nervous glances, knowing that the slightest mistake could lead to conflict. Klein maintained her calm demeanor, confident in her crew's abilities and the fleet's advanced technology. Suddenly, alarms blared on the bridge. "Admiral! Incoming ships!" shouted an officer. The scanners lit up with multiple signals approaching fast. The Zerthian captain looked worried. "They are not with me." "They are hostile!" "Captain Varrock, we need to work together," Klein exclaimed. "We can fight this threat if we unite our forces." Varrock hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, Admiral. Let us see if humanity still has the spirit of warriors." As the alien ships approached, Klein's heart raced. She barked orders to her crew, and they sprang into action, readying their weapons and preparing for battle. The Zerthian ships joined them, forming a united front against the incoming threat. The battle began, lasers lighting up the dark expanse of space. Klein commanded her fleet with precision, her experience guiding her through the chaos. Together with the Zerthian forces, they fought bravely, dodging attacks and returning fire. Klein felt a rush of adrenaline as her ship maneuvered skillfully through the enemy's onslaught. She could see the Zerthian ships fighting alongside her fleet, their weapons striking true. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope. After a fierce fight, the enemy fleet retreated, leaving behind debris and silent ships. Klein looked at her crew, who cheered at their victory. She turned to Captain Varrock, who gave her a nod of respect. "We did it together, Admiral," he said. "Perhaps humanity is not as weak as we thought." Klein smiled, realizing that this first contact had forged a new alliance. The galaxy might be vast and filled with dangers, but humanity was ready to stand strong. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. After their surprising victory, the atmosphere on the USS Valor was electric. Admiral Sarah Klein stood on the bridge, her heart swelling with pride as she looked at her crew. They had fought bravely alongside the Zerthian Empire, and the fear they had once felt was now replaced with determination. "Admiral, we are receiving new intelligence," a young officer reported, breaking the celebratory mood. "The Galactic Council is gathering a fleet. They are alarmed by our return and see us as a significant threat." Klein frowned. "How many ships are they sending?" "Reports suggest they are mobilizing at least 20 warships, including their most advanced cruisers," the officer replied, his voice shaky. "Gather all available data," Klein commanded. "We need to understand their plans. We can't let them surprise us." As the crew scrambled to gather information, Klein felt a sense of urgency wash over her. The Galactic Council had the resources to crush them if they weren't careful. "Send a message to Captain Varrock," she ordered. "We need to unite our forces. If the Council sees us as a threat, we must show them we are ready to defend ourselves." The officer nodded and began typing on the console. Klein watched as the screen flickered to life, showing Captain Varrock on the other end. He looked serious, his green skin shimmering under the ship's lights. "Admiral Klein, I have heard the news," Varrock said, his voice deep and steady. "The Galactic Council has always feared humanity. They see you as a danger that must be eliminated." Klein's eyes narrowed. "We need to prepare. Can we count on your fleet to stand with us?" "Of course," Varrock replied without hesitation. "But we must act fast. The Council will not waste time in their attack." Klein felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The future of humanity and their newfound allies rested in her hands. "Then let's devise a plan," she said. "We'll create a defense strategy that will surprise them." As the two leaders discussed their strategies, Klein's mind raced with possibilities. The humans had advanced technology and tactics, but they needed to adapt quickly to the Council's strengths. They would have to outsmart the enemy and use their surroundings to their advantage. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was in turmoil. Inside their grand meeting chamber, Council members argued fiercely. "These humans pose a serious threat to our peace," shouted a tall, blue-skinned alien. "We must act before they gather more support." Another member, a short, stout creature with many eyes, replied, "But what if they join forces with the Zerthians? They could become unstoppable." The Council debated, but one thing was clear. They needed to send a powerful message to the galaxy. They decided to launch a surprise attack on the human fleet before it could fully unite with the Zerthians. Back on the USS Valor, Klein received reports of the Council's movements. "They're mobilizing!" an officer shouted. "We have to prepare for an imminent attack." "Battle stations," Klein commanded, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The crew leaped into action, checking weapons and readying their ships for combat. She could feel the tension in the air, but also a sense of unity. The crew had trained for moments like this, and they were ready to fight. As the fleet prepared, Klein gathered her commanders in the war room. "Listen closely," she said, her voice firm. "The Council is coming for us, and they will not hold back. We must work together, using every advantage we have. We will divide our forces and confuse them. Let them think they have the upper hand." The commanders nodded, determination on their faces. They discussed tactics, how to use the ship's strengths against the enemy. Klein emphasized the importance of communication. "We must stay in touch during the battle. If someone gets in trouble, we help them," she said. The crew finished their preparations, and the USS Valor stood at the forefront, ready to lead the charge. As the warning alarms blared, Klein felt a mix of fear and excitement. They were facing a powerful enemy, but together, they had a chance. The Zerthian ships joined them, their weapons ready and their crews eager to fight. As the enemy fleet appeared on the horizon, Klein took a deep breath, her heart pounding. The time had come to defend their home and show the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Let's do this," she whispered to herself, steeling her resolve. The battle would not be easy, but they were ready to rise to the challenge. Together, they would face the rising threat and fight for their future. The tension on the USS Valor was palpable as Admiral Sarah Klein stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the approaching enemy fleet. The alarm blared relentlessly, a constant reminder of the battle ahead. Crew members rushed around the bridge, checking systems and preparing weapons. Klein felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with fear. This was it, the moment that would determine humanity's future. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is entering firing range," a tactical officer shouted, sweat beading on his forehead. "They have deployed their fighters." "Prepare to engage," Klein commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "All hands, battle stations. Let's show them what we're made of." As the crew scrambled to their positions, Klein took a deep breath. She glanced at the screen where the enemy ships loomed closer. They were massive, armed to the teeth, and the Galactic Council had brought their most advanced warships. But she wouldn't back down. Humanity had fought for survival before, and they would do it again. "Zerthian ships report status," Klein called out. Captain Varrock's image appeared on the screen, looking fierce. "We are ready, Admiral. We will strike together. Let's take the fight to them." "On my mark," Klein replied, her heart racing. The crew was tense, waiting for her signal. Suddenly, the enemy opened fire. Bright beams of energy shot through space, striking the Zerthian ships. Explosions lit up the dark void, and Klein's stomach dropped. "Return fire! Target their lead ship!" The USS Valor shook as its weapons powered up, unleashing a volley of missiles towards the enemy. The bright trails of fire soared through space, colliding with the enemy vessels. Klein watched intently as explosions erupted, scattering debris everywhere. "Direct hit!" Someone cheered, but Klein knew they had only just begun. "Keep the pressure on! Don't let up!" she shouted. Her voice rang with authority, urging her crew to push forward. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the future of humanity. The Zerthian ships moved in unison, launching their own attacks. Varrock's fleet was a sight to behold, expertly maneuvering through the enemy's fire. Klein's heart swelled with pride as she saw the Zerthian warriors fighting bravely by their side. Together they were a force to be reckoned with. But the enemy was relentless. A swarm of enemy fighters swooped in, targeting the USS Valor. Klein gripped the console, her knuckles white. "Defensive maneuvers! Evasive action!" she commanded. The ship swerved and dodged as enemy missiles shot past them, narrowly missing their mark. Klein could hear the crew yelling in excitement and fear, their determination fueling her own. "Admiral, the shields are weakening!" a crew member shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Divert power from non-essential systems," Klein ordered. "We need to hold on until we can regroup." The battle raged on, and Klein felt the strain of leadership weighing heavily on her. She had to stay focused. She could not let fear take over. The USS Valor took hits, shaking violently, but her crew remained steadfast. "Admiral, we have reinforcements," came a shout from the comms. More Zerthian ships joined the fight, swarming the enemy and creating a distraction. Klein seized the opportunity. "Now's our chance! All ships concentrate fire on their command ship," Klein commanded. The combined might of the human and Zerthian fleets surged forward, weapons blazing. Klein watched as their attacks found their mark, tearing into the enemy command ship. The enemy's coordination faltered, and Klein felt a flicker of hope. "Keep pushing! We can win this!" she shouted, rallying her crew. With renewed vigor, they fought harder, each victory sparking more determination. As the battle continued, Klein received a report from the tactical officer. "Admiral, the enemy command ship is taking heavy damage. They are losing control! Don't let up now! Finish this!" she roared. With a final, concentrated barrage, the command ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending shockwaves through space. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Klein knew the battle wasn't over yet. The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, their formation breaking apart in chaos. Klein allowed herself a moment of relief, but her mind was already racing. They had survived the first wave, but this was only the beginning. "Prepare for possible follow-up attacks. We must stay alert," she instructed, her voice steady despite the chaos of the battle. The crew of the USS Valor had fought valiantly, and Klein felt a sense of pride swell within her. They had stood together against a formidable enemy and emerged victorious. But as she looked at the remnants of the enemy fleet fleeing into the darkness, Klein knew they would have to remain vigilant. The battle for survival was far from over. The battle was over, but the echoes of destruction lingered in the coldness of space. Admiral Sarah Klein stood on the bridge of the USS Valor, watching the enemy ships retreat into the distance. Relief washed over her, but it was mixed with concern. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Galactic Council would not simply accept defeat. "Admiral, we are receiving a communication from Captain Varrock," a young officer announced, breaking Klein's thoughts. On screen, she replied, eager to hear from their ally. Varrock appeared, his expression serious. "Admiral Klein, your fleet fought bravely. We have secured our positions, but we must prepare for their next move. The Council will not take this lightly." Klein nodded. "I agree. We need to regroup and reinforce our defenses. We've shown them our strength, but we cannot let our guard down." As they spoke, the crew worked busily, checking systems and assessing damage. The USS Valor had taken hits, but her crew was determined. They had fought together and survived, creating a bond that went beyond duty.